This year's theme is 2020 Spiritual Vision. Our theme for July is the principles of freedom. And today's topic is the Tao of freedom. Taoist master Lao Tzu wrote in the Tao Te Ching, watch your thoughts, they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. Watch your character, it becomes your destiny. And he also wrote, if you correct your mind, the rest of your life will fall into place. So let's speak and know this truth together. I live in and from divine freedom, and every day I take action to manifest and demonstrate personal freedom and my support for the liberation of all life. And now I'd like to introduce Reverend Kathleen.
Thank you, Peggy. Thank you. Am I coming on?
Yes.
I'm definitely unmuted.
You're fine.
Peggy, could you maybe mute yourself? Oh, you did? Okay. Dan, you might need to spotlight me because I'm not coming on.
Kathleen, you're fine.
Okay. All right. So, there's a Taoist story of a farmer who is outstanding in his field. Thank you, Tom. And one day his horse ran away. Such bad luck, said the neighbors. Maybe, said the maybe, said the farmer. The next morning the horse returned, bringing 3 other wild horses. How wonderful, said all of his neighbors, to which he responded, maybe. The next day, the son tried to ride one of the untamed horses, and he was thrown, broke his leg, to which all of the neighbors gathered and they tried to comfort the farmer and said, what a misfortune, to which the farmer replied, maybe. The day after that, the military officials came to the village to draft the young men into the army who were in the village. And when they saw the son with his broken leg, they passed him by. And all of the neighbors gathered around the farmer and said, oh, this is such a blessing, how wonderful. To which the farmer replied, maybe. So this teaching story of the farmer demonstrates the principle of freedom that comes from, you know what, Dan, I don't think this is working. We need to fix this.
Kathleen, it's working fine.
Okay, I'm not spotlighted here, though.
It's working fine.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so this teaching story then demonstrates the principle of freedom. The Taoist farmer lived from this state of mind called oneness consciousness that allowed him to see the unfolding events from a broader perspective, from a higher perspective. And as a result, his open-mindedness, the all is well consciousness, the maybe consciousness, was a byproduct then of the awareness. Matsuo Basha once said, do not seek to follow the footsteps of the wise. Seek the consciousness that they sought. And Jesus echoed this when he said, seek first the kingdom and all else shall be added, which really was talking about a state of mind, a state of consciousness, of oneness and wholeness and love, to which all life is added. And that beautiful saying that Peggy just read about how our thoughts eventually become our destiny is such a great example of this whole idea of what happens when we align ourselves with the truth, which is all there is one life, one presence, one source, one power. And from that state of mind, then, there is a great, powerful, and beautiful experience of freedom. So how do we attain this oneness consciousness, this expanded state that allows us to be in the midst of a challenging situation and all the full range of emotions, and yet be able to observe it and come from enough of a state of equanimity that we're able to choose? So that is what our topic is today, is how do we attain that state of oneness, that state of continually experiencing our freedom. I have three basic talking points that will address that. The first is this whole idea of the experience of oneness and freedom. Why is that? Why does that go hand in hand? Going with the flow as an experience of freedom. And then mindfulness, being in the present moment, and how that state allows the flow to move through us into right action, inspired action. So let's reroot ourselves in this quote by Ernest Holmes about freedom, because it's really important to see that truth is truth, no matter what spiritual tradition that we speak from. Today we're going to be talking about Taoism, but notice how it echoes, or how it is in such alignment with what we teach as well. So Ernest Holmes says the divine plan is freedom. Bondage is not God ordained. Freedom is the birthright of every living soul. We express our freedom when we listen to our inner voice. When we follow the guidance of the inner voice, freedom is the result. So Taoism, such a powerful teaching. It's from the Chinese tradition. It goes way back 5,000 years ago, and it was from actually a group of men and women who used their superb powers of observation and their understanding, their intuitive understanding of the workings of the universe. And that tradition was passed down verbally for quite some time until it was recorded by Lao Tzu, who Peggy just read a couple of quotes from him in his seminal work, Tao Te Ching. And then also there was another Taoist master in that time. His name was Shang Tzu, and his book was called Inner Chapters, and I'm not as familiar with that one. But when I was doing my research on this thing called the Taoism and all of the principles, and I'm so grateful for online because I found a really beautiful reference. There are so many aspects. The words are slightly different. But as I was reading through it, I was thinking, oh, this is how we would say the same thing in the Science of Mind. This is how we would say the same thing, as I went through. And it again reaffirmed to me the truth of oneness and the principles that run through this one life that we live. So the Tao then is an all-inclusive thing, presence. It is the eternal, life-giving presence and power of the universe itself. It is the physical universe, which includes you and myself and the entire cosmos. And it is the process or principles by which the universe governs itself. Does that sound familiar? That's when we talk about the one life, God. We're talking about the same thing. It's all inclusive. all there is God, is what we say in our tradition. So beneath the apparent separateness of everyday life that we live, there is this unity that is life-giving, that is beneficent, that is all-providing, that we call love, ever giving of itself. That is the Tao. Taoism is organized around three key principles. That there is only one life, and there's a web of interconnectedness of all life. That there is one constant, which is change. That change just simply is. There's an ever unfolding nature of life. And the third one is that everything moves in the direction of balance and harmony. So the sages, as they observed, these ancient sages, as they observed life, they saw very clearly how humanity was just very much a part of all of it. Not separate, a part of it, part of the Tao. And so therefore, our natural way of being is to live in balance and alignment with it. And living in alignment then allows us to be what they call Pooh. Any of you who remember the Tao of Pooh, the Pooh Bear. It's P'(U), which stands for our essential nature. And therefore we experience ourselves in that natural state as one with all that is. So, this experience of oneness then is in alignment with freedom, because freedom is the nature of the all that is. Therefore, it is our nature. So when we experience ourselves connected with something larger than ourselves, we have this amazing feeling of thrill, gratitude, awe and wonder. I get God bumps, expansion, well-being, love, just this outpouring of love. And the feeling that the boundaries that we so normally see are kind of very soft and maybe even gone in that moment. So this happens when we confront or when we see beautiful landscapes, a gorgeous sunset, a desert landscape, the ocean, and watching the waves come in and go out. All of these various experiences help us to stay tied to our state of oneness. That's why being out in nature is so important for our well-being, because it helps us to get regrounded back into that natural state of oneness. Yesterday, I'm going to continue on with what Jenny was talking about. So yesterday, there were 15 or 16 of us that got together at CC Arts. And for many of us, it was the first time we'd seen each other since March. I mean, in a long time, in person. Yes, on Zoom, but in person for the first time. And so as we were gathering in the parking lot in a big circle, social distancing, but a time to connect before we went about our work, I noticed something. I noticed that sensation that I got, the God bumps that came up, the outpouring of love that I felt, and the gratitude that we were all together, and thinking about how all of the connection that we've developed together all these years was still there. It was always there. It had not disappeared. And in that moment of awareness, what I'm trying to say is we can experience this thing called oneness in our relationships with others. And Taoism calls this living in the circle of Tao. I think that's so profound since we use the signs of mind symbol, and it's a circle, the circle in which all exists, the circle of life, so the circle of the Tao. Occurrences like this, oneness or being in the circle of the Tao, are memorable, they are deeply meaningful, and they are profoundly satisfying to the soul. And that is why we so often seek that, whether it's through spiritual community, through being in nature, because it is so much a reminder of who we are in truth. So what gets in the way then of this expanded consciousness, right? If this is our natural state, what's going on when we're not there? And it's simply this, as individualizations living in this human body, we're still spiritual beings living in this human body, which is made of spiritual substance. We have this thing called human consciousness, which is vital for us to survive and thrive on the planet. So the hallmark of human consciousness is the ability to see separate things in order to understand our environment and in order to make decisions and take appropriate actions. So there's a purpose in it. We may call this the ego or whatever it is, but it is a consciousness that supports us in moving throughout our day, getting ourselves fed, taking care of our families. The consequences, though, of living from this state of separation on a day-to-day basis is that we start focusing only on our own needs, or the needs of just a few, maybe our family or our tribe. So it's all about self-preservation then. And what happens with self-preservation and a focus only on our own needs? Well, we can see it right now on the planet. We can see the examples of what's happening with the stop and start kind of response to the COVID-19, and therefore the spreading of it, to the totally lost my track of thought. Anyway, to environmental destruction. That's what I wanted to say. To the pollution of our oceans and our streams and our air and our land. So this is what happens with this self-preservation or separation consciousness, human consciousness. On the social level, what does this mean when we're in separation consciousness? It means we're looking for differences, for how people who are different. And people who are different in this state of mind could be a threat. So things like where somebody lives, or language, or skin color, or ethnicity, or gender, or politics then becomes a threat from this state of consciousness. This separation state of consciousness, though, can also affect us intrapersonally, within ourselves, as we compare ourselves to others and then judge ourselves, which leads to depression and shame and low self-esteem. However, and here's the beautiful thing of it, however, our consciousness as part of the Tao also has this opportunity or this availability of experiencing wholeness and oneness when we realize that all is Tao, all is the one life. From that state, then, we begin to see the interconnection of life and the importance of caring for not only ourselves, or our families or our tribe, but caring for all of humanity, caring for our entire planet and its environment. So the beauty of the experience of oneness, and notice I said it's experience. It's not something that's just a mental thing. It is a full body experience that can be felt as gratitude, as peace, as joy, as God pumps, however it works for you. Awe and wonder. So let's now talk about going with life's flow and freedom. I'm going to return to our experience yesterday, preparing for the Peace Garden. You know, what I noticed is after we made that connection with one another, it's like we reestablished our awareness of the circle of the Tao, our oneness with all of life, with each other. What I noticed was seamless flow in which we all set to work without anybody directing how it should unfold. We all simply looked and noticed what our parts were, what we were called to do, what was ours to do, and we did it. And so picnic tables were moved, and bushes were trimmed, and trees were trimmed, and weeds were pulled, and just all of the pieces and parts that allowed us to establish a nice template, as we could say, for the birth of the Peace Garden, all the measurements and all the other things that went into it. Going with the flow. I love that concept, going with the flow. So one of the fundamental tenets then of Taoism is called Wu-Wei, effortless action. That's what we were experiencing yesterday, effortless action. When we release our attachment to outcome and simply allow things to unfold naturally, which is what we were doing, then we contribute to the balance and the harmony of the universe. I know I was feeling very much in harmony and balance with all that is through that experience yesterday. So Wu-Wei then is swimming with the current, going with the flow of the Tao, which is ever-giving and beneficent. Going with the flow, being in harmony with the Tao, we tap into the universal power itself that is without limit. Without limit. Because we're living in the present moment. Remember, we talk about in the present moment is where the full power and presence of God is. That power to give birth to the newness, the freshness, the beauty, the grace, all the goodness that God is. This is freedom. This is freedom. And this is not something that we need to harness. This is what is really important. We don't need to harness this. We don't need to force anything. We simply let go and let God. Going with the flow is letting go and letting God. It's one and the same. It's letting the good flow in us, through us, and as us. In our teaching, where we talk about different levels of consciousness, this is the level of consciousness called God through me. It's the mystic consciousness, and it's available to each and every one of us. It's beyond the first level, which is victim consciousness, life is happening to me, and there's a lot of suffering there. And it's even beyond the manifestor stage, where we learn how to use the law. And yet in that God through me and as me, we are still aware of the law, and we are still aware that we are using it because we want to consciously choose where our minds are going. And as our minds are in the present and available and open to the good, then we are allowing the good to manifest through us. We're seeing something that needs to be done, and we do it with effortless action, Wu Wei. Mindfulness and inspired action is the final thing I want to talk about. And so, again, to attain this state of oneness, to attain this state of living in the flow, standing in our power, truly being and living in that state of spiritual liberation, we have a practice that we can do. Since we're not outdoors all the time and regrounding ourselves in oneness, and even if we are, we can practice something wherever we are, and it's called mindfulness. Mindfulness is simply returning to the breath, returning to the present moment, returning to how we're feeling, tuning in to the guidance that's coming through to help us respond to whatever is going on. Mindfulness is really big right now, online and just simply something that people are becoming more and more aware of. And it is because it really, truly aligns us with this natural state, our essential nature, where we know that we are the Tao itself, individualized. We are God itself, the one life, individualized. So then we become more spontaneous, and we become more identified with the whole, with the all that is, the breath and the life. So here's a practice that I invite you to take to really ground yourself in this state. And it is to contemplate all is Tao. And if you don't want to do all is Tao, you can do all is God or all is the one life. And the invitation is to go out in nature. I know it's kind of hot right now, so do it early in the morning or later in the evening if that's more comfortable for you. And plan a 1-hour walk in nature. And just simply repeat, all is Tao, or all is the one life, over and over and over again as you look at each and everything, as you experience what you're experiencing in your body, as you're thinking what you're thinking. All is Tao. All is Tao. As you're walking your dog, as you're patting your cat, as you're riding your bike, as you're driving your car, even the traffic is the Tao. Everybody's starting to see how this can really truly shift us and bring us back into alignment with harmony and balance, with an ability to be resilient even in the midst of challenges. And we know with what's going on in our world that this state of well-being is so greatly called for if we are to make good choices and if we are to live our lives in joy and love and in peace. So I invite everybody to turn within with me in this moment, and let's root ourselves in this beautiful teaching of oneness, going with the flow, mindfulness, living in the circle of the Tao, realizing there is truly one life, one source, one presence, one power, one Tao, and that life is my life, and that life is the life of each and every one of us. We are unified in this one. We are in tune with this one. We are together unfolding the nature of this one life. All love, all peace, all joy, all intelligence, all wisdom, all creative flow, all potentiality, all possibility is who we are, individualized. That flow of life, I know, is moving through each and every one of us as we connect with our breath, as we come into the present moment, as we embrace the beautiful and perfect now moment. That's the only moment we all ever have, truly. Realizing that we are in this beautiful, seamless dance of life together, co-creating heaven on earth, a world that works for everyone, in the flow of that good. Living is that good. Revealing that good. So I give my thanks for this word of truth flowing through me, the flow of the Tao. I give thanks for the manifestation of this word as good and more good. And I release this word now to the omni-action of the universal law of mind, of the one mind, the all law, the all-powerful law, knowing that its nature is to simply respond in the affirmative and yes, 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 begin working on it and revealing it in our lives. And so I'm so grateful for this truth, and I invite us all together to say, yes, and so it is. Amen. Beautiful. Thank you, everybody. Yes, so good to see all your faces. Okay. So what I'd like to do now is reintroduce our beloved